David Clark and James O'Keefe at Freedom Summit 2018. Get your tickets today at freedomsummitchicago.com.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And boy, what a fall from grace for a paragon of integrity like Lanny Davis.
No,
I just don't know how to tell you. What's the? Let's go to the tote board first, though. What's the latest on Michael Cohen versus Peter Strzok? We're following that GoFundMe race.
Peter Strzok has $461,000.
Yeah.
His goal is $500,000. Michael Cohen also has $500,000 as a goal, and he's up past $150,000 so far.
All right, but Michael Cohen just started.
He did just start it. Yeah, Strzok had a few weeks, ahead of him. But they're
Right.
both vying for $500,000.
Please don't make them go full Sally Struthers.
Yeah, we don't want to see any PSA type commercials on.
Oh, open your hearts and open your wallets for these.
Two goofballs.
Excuse me.
Oh,
These are
excuse me.
two gentlemen felled by tragedy, according to Lanny Davis. One had bank fraud committed upon him. Apparently.
I know it's like a disease, a virus that kind of sneaks up on you, bank fraud.
Well, these applications fill themselves out, and sometimes they overstate or understate, forget to state debt load, for example, that may factor into a line of credit. That's just for example. And obviously, Peter Strzok he also said Michael Cohen had knowledge that Special Counsel Mueller would be very interested in about things like Trump's pre-knowledge of the hacking of the DNC by the Russians, and no, I'm not sure. Now, Lanny Davis says possibly that's the case, but I'm not sure. Well, sure, anything's possible.
I hate when the facts get in the way of a good story, or when the truth gets in the way, too.
So does Lanny Davis, so you have that in common with him. For more on this topic and how anti-Trump hyperbole coming from Lanny Davis and the D.C. press corps is driving people insane. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Kimball, editor of the new Criterion, columnist for PJ Media. You can also regularly read his stuff at amgreatness.com. Roger, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Are you crestfallen over the fall from grace for one Lanny Davis?
Yes, I have my black armband on now, and
Did you like
and writing people notes with black bordered stationery.
Well,
It's truly sad.
Does it surprise you that he blew the CNN exclusive interview?
No, I mean, frankly, it's hard. It's hard to work up much surprise these days. I really do think that President Trump has gotten under the skins of his opponents to such an extent that he really has driven them crazy. I mean, when you have someone of the stature of Elliot Cohen, he's a smart man, comparing the president to Macbeth, a regicide, someone who murdered his rivals' families, who was, a power-hungry tyrant. He really was a tyrant. Now, what has this president done that's so tyrannous? Well, he's rescued the economy from the doldrums bequeathed him by Barack Obama. He's made scores of terrific judicial appointments. He's rolled back the regulatory state. He's bolstered the American military. He has, enhanced America's standing in the international scene. It's just been one triumph after the next, and for every triumph that he wins, it seems to drive his opponents crazier and crazier. It's quite extraordinary. If you just go down the list, go to some news aggregator like Real Clear Politics, and they're very even-handed. So they'll have some pieces supporting the president, and then many attacking him. But the headlines are things like, Donald Trump is a criminal. It's on the basis of what? It's pure fantasy. And I in that column you mentioned, I talk about a line from Plato's Republic where he says, a lot of people will lie. That's not surprising. But no one would want what Plato calls the lie in the soul, which means that you're kind of you are so dishonest that you're dishonest to yourself, and you can no longer distinguish effectively between the truth and a lie, between reality and some distortion of reality. And I'm afraid that that's what has happened to many of the president's opponents. It's not that they disagree with him. They fundamentally believe that he is illegitimate. Therefore, he's like a heretic. He can't be argued with. He has to be destroyed. And it's poisonous. It's poisonous for our country, and I hope it will end soon. That's
a perfect segue to Adam. But whoa. As a former federal prosecutor, I like to gather all the evidence before I make a determination. So it's much too early to be talking about impeachment. This on the heels of Nancy Pelosi saying after Cohen's plea that impeachment is not a priority. It seems that Democrats...
Definitely the House of Representatives. Well, I think that most dispassionate observers now realize that the Republicans are very likely indeed to pick up seats in the Senate, and that they will hold the House and maybe even pick up some seats in the House. But so that being the case, impeachment is a dead letter. I just think that there's a kind of political reality that Adam Schiff is reluctantly bending to.
When do you think this craziness is going to end, this Mueller investigation?
Well, I thought it would have ended a long time ago. I predicted, at the extraordinary reaction to the president's inaugural address, which I thought was terrific, but it was greeted as if it were, a speech by Adolf Hitler or something. I thought, yes, okay, we'll have this for a little while, but then it will calm down, because people will say, well, he's not really Hitler. He's actually pretty competent, but we don't like what he's doing. But, then it would just kind of go back to normal partisan bickering. But that hasn't happened. And I can't quite explain it. I could understand it if he were doing a bad job, but I cannot think, there's been no president in my lifetime, not even Ronald Reagan, who's had the kinds of success this president has had in the first 2 years. It's been absolutely extraordinary. And I don't know, maybe that reality just pushes them further over the edge. I don't know. But let's say that the midterms go well for the Republicans. Maybe that will be a kind of wake-up call to the Democrats, and they'll start calling off the Antifa thugs and dial back the senile gibbering of Nancy Pelosi and the insane socialistic maunderings of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. I mean, these people, in a sane world, they would deserve our pity and compassion, because they're clearly out of touch with reality. But unfortunately, being in positions of power, they also they require our vigilance, because they're dangerous people. And it's an extraordinary situation to find ourselves in.
With respect to the Mueller investigation, in a sort of counterintuitive way, is the extension of it something that ultimately benefits Trump? I mean, if there's nothing to hide, assuming there's nothing more in terms of wrongdoing other than these hush money payments, because now you've got Bruce Orr on the Hill, and today, so one key player from Justice or FBI, CIA at some point, like Brennan, who's been just testifying on cable news shows mainly, where he doesn't get indicted if he commits perjury. But you see one after the other of these high-ranking officials, and they get completely taken apart on the merits of what they did versus what they said, and what they did versus what we think they should be doing. And all of that, unfortunately, the reckoning may need to come, undermines the credibility of the agencies and these individuals, but it essentially delegitimizes the investigation and redounds to the benefit of Trump.
Well, I think ultimately that may be right, but the problem is that the prosecutorial machine over which Robert Mueller is presiding is extraordinarily powerful and extraordinarily damaging. I mean, he has destroyed many people's lives already who have nothing to do with any Russian collusion. It's just a kind of grinding machine that is, who seems to have unlimited funds. He has a stable full of rabid Democratic, Obama and Hillary supporting prosecutors, people who have destroyed companies like this guy Weissman, who he destroyed a huge accounting firm. Then it turned out that he was wrong. He said, "Oh well, sorry," but meanwhile, 17,000 people or something were out of work. These people are. It's unfortunately the Justice Department in this country has become part of this deep state, and this tradition now of plea bargaining, which means you kind of admit guilt for things you didn't do. And Michael Flynn, what has he been indicted for? Well, a kind of process crime. It's more process than crime, as I put it. He was entrapped by the FBI essentially, and there's been a lot of collateral damage. There's likely to be more, and if you keep digging and digging and digging. What is Paul Manafort on the hook for? Yes, tax evasion. You oughtn't to have done that, but that was like in 2005.
Yeah,
right. He was pretty good at it.
Apparently, and we may learn more in his second trial. But even to your point, here's another trial about more crimes related to his business dealings. He is Roger Kimball, editor at the New Criterion, columnist for PJ Media. Check out his latest piece, How Anti-Trump Hyperbole Fosters Insanity. Roger, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Terrific. Talk to you soon, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.